Oh, man. I can tell you this, my training has not paid off yet. It's still horrible. It's horrible. The motions are so difficult, so hard. So anyhow, I am not worried about it, though, because I know you guys are going to rally behind me today, buy some tacos. Every taco you buy will go towards the boys today. Just kidding. I don't think that's how it works, but anyhow. Well, hey, we're going to jump into our series on families, and truly, we're excited about all the families that are part of New Life Fellowship, and we believe that if we can raise up this next generation, we can make an impact in the future of our community. Because truly, the blood in the veins of our culture and society is found in our children, and so we have to nurture them, point them in the right direction, and that's what BGMC does. It teaches them to be givers. It teaches them to look beyond just their own world and into the world of missions and far beyond that as we look at the news and see Ukraine and Russia and all the things going on overseas and our military folks that have been even sent out already and all of the things. It just makes you, it makes you really understand what's important, and that's the priorities of the gospel of Jesus Christ, knowing that people know Jesus. Because there's something that lasts far more than this 70, 80 years that we live on this planet. That's our eternal hope in Jesus Christ. It's heaven. It's our reward. And so we need to point people in the right direction so that no matter what happens, as we approach these end times and see crazy things going on, we know where we will go, right? Amen? Having that confident assurance in Christ. That's what these fun times are all about, is making it fun. A wise teacher makes learning fun, is what Proverbs says. And so we're trying to do that. Well, hey, I want to jump into this really quick. And today, the whole entire message is based off a book that I read called The 5 Love Languages. How many have read the book, 5 Love Languages? Wow! Props to you. That is one of the probably best-selling relationship books. It's in over 50 languages. It's sold, 15 or 20 million copies. Dr. Gary Chapman, he is a counselor with the Assemblies of God. He was stationed in Branson, Missouri for many years. I believe he's still there. But he wrote this book based on a number of counseling appointments that he had over the years with families that were struggling in relationships, specifically marriages. But the findings in this book can help us in parenting. It can help us in leading. It can help us in our marriage relationships in a number of different ways. And so I thought it would be extremely relevant this morning to give the 5 love languages that he communicated. And I want to do it pretty quick because we've got less time today because of all the other festivities that we've had. But the one thing that is very evident to me in 23 years of ministry is this, is that we are all different. We are all different, every single one of us. God made us unique. He made us different. Each of our fingerprints are different. God made us unique, and we need to celebrate our uniqueness, and we need to celebrate the differences of one another instead of criticize the differences of one another, especially within our household. We want unity in the church, so we teach our members what personalities, what different personality types there are and how to work with people that aren't like you. But within the home, we also need to understand that we're not the same. And in order to have unity in the home, we have to be willing to work with the differences that we find in our loved ones. Gary Chapman has identified 5 key things that he considers love languages. It's ensuring that your loved ones in your home feel that love. Dr. Chapman said this in an interview when he was asked about monogamy and relationships today and why people aren't willing to get married and why there's less commitment today in relationships. You know what he said? He said, I believe it starts in our kids. That got my attention immediately when he's interviewed on marriages, but he started with the children, and he said this. He said, from an early age, I truly believe that there are kids that come from loving homes that don't feel loved. That caught my attention too, because I feel like my wife and I have created a loving home for our kids. And I was listening to this podcast this week, and I had my 8-year-old sitting in the truck with me, And I looked at him, I said, what makes you feel loved? And he goes, I don't know, take me to a store and buy me something or something like that. That's what he said. I said, well, okay, it's easy. And that happens to be one of the love languages is gifts. But he said this, that there's oftentimes it's not that the parents don't love their kids, it's that the parents don't know how to love their kids in a way that the kids feel loved. And he said that's why you can have two separate kids in one household, and one grows up feeling loved, nurtured, and cared for, and one grows up feeling like their parents loved the other one but hated them. You know why that is? It's because each one has a sense of being loved in a different way. Their love language is different. And you know what happens as parents, as moms and dads, is oftentimes we have like these natural tendencies, natural personalities, or natural characteristics that we just automatically do. And there's kids in our home that feel loved because of our natural tendency to love them that way. But then we've got those kids, and they're the ones that you tell everybody, had I had this one first, I'd only have one child. You know who they are in your house. My wife has used that line many times. Those are usually the ones that you have to begin to figure out. Phil Gunger, when he was here, began to share about the different islands that people live on. You got Fun Island, and you got all these different islands. And we call it the DISC personality profile test that we give you when you become a member of New Life Fellowship. And so we want to help you identify your strengths and weaknesses, and we also want you to understand other people's strengths and weaknesses. Because the one thing for sure, the closer you get to somebody, the more you realize, wow, they're not perfect. When you get married and they move into your house, you realize, you're not perfect. And then all of a sudden you have to begin this journey of learning how to live with one another and the Bible says this, make allowances for each other's faults. Did you catch that? God understood it very well. God speaks all 5 love languages. And He's very good at relationships. See, there's people probably in this room or watching online that right now you feel like your love tank is completely unempty. I don't know about you, but anytime I get in my wife's car, there's this little light that comes on, and it says, you'll be out of gas in about 26 miles. Can anybody relate to that one? Yeah, Jesus help us. 15 below zero, we're driving on the interstate, traffic comes to a halt, and we got 20 miles to go. It's like, that's not a good place to run out of gas. I'm guilty too, by the way, not just my wife. She's not up here, she's in kids ministry this morning. She can't defend herself. She'd usually be screaming right now from the audience, but she's not up here. So I can talk about her. I can use her as many examples today. See, we have to have our love tanks on full. You know, the great thing about a full tank of gas, you can go a long ways. I love it in my truck when I fill the tank up and it says 525 miles still empty. And it's like, woo, I could go a long ways on this. And in the winter, I'm thinking, how far, okay, 525 miles south, what's the degrees? You know, like how far can I get and how warm is it? That's sometimes how I think when I look at that little gauge thing. But even in our relationships as married couples, in our relationships as parents, and even siblings, and extended family members, our love tanks need to be on full if we want a great relationship in unified homes. And there's so many things that he has in this book that I thought were great illustrations. Go ahead and put the slide up of the first slide of me. I think this one's me. It's do you have it? I can't see. It's not up there. There it is. That's really small writing over there. I can't see it on the back screen. But here's the thing. This shows what my main love language is. Acts of service and quality time, then words of affirmation, physical touch, and receiving gifts. Now, how did I get this? There's a free quiz that is online that you can take, and I encourage all of you to take it. And I even encourage you to have your kids take it. If your kids are old enough to comprehend what they're reading, or you can even help them. I began to ask my kids a series of questions to find out what their love language is. Now, for me, acts of service, when my wife cleans the house, when there's things going on, or I come in and she's done things like that, all of a sudden I feel like, I feel, wow, man, she really cares. Because the way that I grew up, things were always a certain way. And so acts of service, make me kind of feel that love. And then the next one is quality time. And if you go to the next slide up there, you'll see my wife's, she took the test as well. And hers is, I forget what her, words of affirmation. Quality time was number 2. And then it was acts of service. So both of us have, in our top 3, have very similar responses, which is great. And that's probably why we've had less issues, because there's some natural tendencies to love one another. There's some natural things that we do to make one another feel loved and fill each other's love tank. Okay? And so the whole quality time thing, me and her love, one of our favorite things to do is just to find a nice restaurant and get away from the kids and go sit down and have a nice meal together. There's no chaos. We can talk to one another. We can put our phones down and we can just have conversations about life. We used to jump in the truck when our kids were little, and the only time it felt like they slept was when you drove, and so you shove them in that little car seat, you put them in incarceration, and you drive until they fall asleep, and then you can have an actual conversation and some quality time with one another. And so you can kind of see how you test. If you jump online and take the quiz, you can Google it. You can go to 5lovelanguages.com. But I encourage you and your spouse, take the test. Find out what it is that makes you tick. Understand one another on a deeper level. When we do premarital counseling, we have assessments that we do to help identify key attributes, to help identify some red flags. And also in our counseling, we also do marriage counseling as well. We have some marriage mentor couples that come alongside people that are just struggling in their marriage. And we take an assessment, and we can begin to identify a lot about a person just by how they answered the questions. It's pretty amazing what these tests can do. I know the military uses them. A lot of your places of employment use them. Why? Because they want unity. They want to know how to place you. They want to know how to work with you. They want to know how you learn. You know what's crazy is oftentimes we spend more time planning a vacation than we do planning a successful marriage. I read a statistic that was alarming. If you're part of a blended family, you already have a lot of things against you. 60 to 70% of second marriages and blended families end in divorce, and a lot of times it has to do with the parenting aspect of things when there's kids involved from other marriages. Man, the odds become stacked against you. We already have them stacked against us in America. They say 50% of our marriages end in divorce, and right now over 60% of our families across the U.S. are blended families. So, man, we have some odds against us. And you know what they found? Only 50% of blended families have spent any time planning or talking about what the parental roles are, talking about the relationship now that you are a family. It's pretty crazy. The most dividing topic amongst blended families is the parenting aspect. Can I just say this, and we have to move on. If you trusted each other enough to marry one another, you need to trust each other enough to parent in partnership. It doesn't mean that the step-parent jumps right in and starts this disciplinary action part. You need to build relationships and bridge gaps, and there's things that you need to do, but you have to be on the same page. See, 100% of your assets and 100% of your liabilities become one another's. It's not his and hers. It's ours. I can't believe you brought this massive child support thing into this family. It's costing us deeply. We can barely make it financially. No. This is our bill together because we chose to get married. See? A lot of things come against us right off the bat in a blended family. Let's talk about point number 1 of the 5 love languages. The first thing is physical touch. Now, I will tell you that when I was younger, I took this test, and number 1 for me was physical touch. It's like, come on, baby, let's get it on, right? Marvin Gaye is playing in the background. It was all about physical touch, and it has changed a lot in my life. And my wife just said this the other day. She said, I want to take the personality profile test again because I think I've changed even more after parenting 4 kids and all this other stuff. But physical touch is one where there is an exchange of touch. It's person-to-person contact. You might say, touch isn't that important. Well, I beg to differ. They did research in an orphanage, and I believe it was in Russia. It's been a long time since I read the report and the research on it. But they took, and this is so inhumane, but they took an aspect of the babies within the orphanage, and they didn't touch them. They would feed them and give them all of the physical things that they needed as far as their food and ailments and change of diapers, but they wouldn't hold them, caress them, and give them the physical love and affection that a baby demands at once. Then they had another aspect in this orphanage, and they began to caress them, they held them, they pampered them just like a biological parent would do and would want to do. Man, it was crazy how many of these children ended up dying. It was a massive amount. There was a percentage to it, but it was a huge amount of them. Why? Because humans desire and demand physical touch. It may not be the highest on your love scale or your love language, but the reality is we all demand physical touch. We need physical touch. Dads, can I talk to you for a minute? Your daughters need physical touch. They need to know what appropriate love looks like. I remember, because I got one girl and I got 3 boys, and I can just sit on my boys and beat them up and do all that, and they feel loved, right? Oh, Dad loves me, pinned me to the ground the other, they love to wrestle. They have these great aspirations. My 8-year-old still thinks he's stronger than me and can take me out. But our daughters need it as well. And I can remember those moments, those thoughts that go through your head, because there's so much garbage in our world. When my daughter would sit on my lap. And you know what? I had to embrace this and go, there is no way that a culture is going to drive me away from loving my daughter. She can sit on my lap. I'm going to embrace my daughter. I'm going to love her and give her godly affection. I'm not abusing that. I'm not touching inappropriately. And step-parents, that line of morality has to go even higher. That line of accountability has to go even higher. But they still need our love and affection. They need physical touch. Human beings need physical touch. Person-to-person contact. Jesus believed we needed physical touch so much that he decided to come down in physical form. He embraced the children. He laid hands on them. And he blessed them. Hugs, holding hands, sitting together, reaching out. Parents, your kids need to see you affectionate with one another. I like to gross my kids out sometimes. Just gross them out. Just gross them out. Start making out or something. They're like, you're disgusting. Well, you know what, though? They go away from it and they realize, Mom and Dad really love each other. And I want that same relationship when I get married. Physical touch. Step-parents, here's something that I encourage you to do if you're very early on in this relationship with your stepchildren. It might start with fist bumps and pats on the back before it ever starts with a hug or an embrace, or they begin to pour their heart out to you and you find yourself just embracing them. But I want to encourage you, we cannot abandon the love language of physical touch. We need to identify what is our kids' desire, what is our spouse's desire, and let's make sure that their love tank is full. Number 2 is this, gifts, physical items. This was my 8-year-old, right? When do you feel loved, buddy? Well, if you take me to my favorite store. I said, well, what's your favorite store? And he goes, you know. And I said, Hobbytown or Thunder Road, whatever it is, Airport Road, all the little remote controls, 4-wheel drive trucks, boats, anything that he can drive fast, he loves it. He's like, that would really make me feel loved. I said, I just got you a remote control for your Christmas present. Some people, it's physical items, it's gifts, and can I just challenge you, it doesn't have to be expensive. Sometimes it's just the thought, hey, I thought about you, and therefore I bought you something. And it makes them feel so loved and so appreciated. If somebody's giving you a lot of gifts, there's a good indicator that they're expressing their natural love language to you and trying to express their love to you. And if you reciprocate that, and start giving them gifts, you're probably going to find, wow, this is pretty powerful. And it doesn't even have to be anything that you buy. See, I think oftentimes we always put this price tag on things and say, well, I can't afford that. But, and we kind of bicker about it. But just thinking of our spouse and giving them something that's had some thought go into it can be a very, very powerful thing. Now, I'll say this, because this is in relation to marriage, blended families, parenting. Step-parents, you might find that as you begin this process, if you find out that one of the children in your household that's now one of your kids has that love language of gift, they might not want to accept your gift because they may feel like it's somehow not being loyal to their biological father or mother. Keep doing it. Don't give up. Keep bridging the gap and keep loving them in a way that makes them feel loved, because ultimately, in the end, he who spends the most time wins. Ultimately, in the end, he who never gives up is going to, if you don't give up, you're probably going to see fruit from it. It can be hard for children that are going through a situation like that where they're being pulled away. There's a lot of confusion. And so please make allowances for one another's faults, even in your stepchildren. Number 3 is acts of service. This is providing assistance. It's making sure, first of all, that your stuff gets done, and then beyond that, serve your spouse, serve your kids, help them with something. I've got some kids in my family, and there's been times that I've just done something for them, and it shocked me that they came back and they said, hey, thanks for helping me out with that. It's a great opportunity to just kind of bridge that gap sometimes, is this whole acts of service thing. Check your attitude in doing it, though, because if you do it with a bad attitude, it's going to come across. Complete what you start and use your giftings to make their life easier. Some of these love languages are going to be things that feel completely awkward to you. You're going to feel like they don't even matter. And that's because it's not your love language, but it may be theirs. To different people, to different personalities, to different desires. But keep doing it. Number 4 is words of affirmation. If you go on the test, the quiz, and you take it, on the website, it will give some very detailed descriptions of this that I think will help you guys out enormously. But words of affirmation. So this one's my wife. She loves the words of affirmation. And these are incredibly important in any relationship, even if it's not their primary love language. I told you guys a couple weeks ago, we just read a book together as a deacon board, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It talks about the power of words. If you manage multiple people, if you're a manager or you're a business owner, or if you are doing anything that includes other people, you should read that book, because it will help you understand people's psychology, their emotional side of life, and we all need somebody speaking life into us. The entire creation was brought about by words. God spoke it into existence. Words are powerful. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, the Word of God says. And you can either speak life to people or you can speak death to people. And if it's their primary love language, you need to kind of do some self-evaluation and identify, how am I speaking to my child or to my spouse whose primary love language is words of affirmation? Is their love tank full based on what I say, or is their love tank empty based on what I say? And here's the other thing. Sometimes we do this thing where it's like, oh, wow, you did a great job on that. And we're trying to do the how to win friends and influence people thing. And then we follow it up with, but. Those buts rescind every positive thing that you just said. Hey, buddy, you're doing a good job, but. They're like, oh, here comes the truth now. I got the fluff. Here comes the truth. That's why I love that book, because it coaches you through the process of how do you speak. You look at somebody and go, man, you're getting fat. If their whole love language is words of affirmation, you've just destroyed them. Their love tank's on empty. See, there's ways to approach things, and there's things that we can say that are uplifting and that will produce the outcome that you want, but it's oftentimes we're not educated enough, not school education, that's the school of hard raps sometimes. We're not educated enough to know how to get from point A to point B with somebody that's not going the direction we think they should go. And so we just say a whole bunch of things, trying to get them to just line up and do what we think that they should. Use words in communicating positive messages to one another. Praise for accomplishments. Compliment about some aspect of their character and their personality. Identify the things that you are blessed by. Be honest, though, too. Don't just compliment and say things that aren't true. Here, in my family, here's what we do when our kids, because your kids probably don't do this, but my kids argue in the house sometimes. And so they'll say things like, you're stupid, and it's, we have to put the brakes on and go, we don't do that here. This is a safe place for our whole family. We'll always feel loved here and cared for, go through the whole speech. And then I say, now you have 60 seconds to say 20 nice things about your sibling for saying that. And all the lies start coming out. You're so handsome. You're just anything they can think of. You're good at riding a four-wheeler. You have nice hair. I like black color hair. You got a nice nose. Your eyes are pretty. And it's like, oh my gosh, we need to back this thing up a little bit here. What do you authentically think about your sibling? That could be dangerous in that moment, though. But you get the drift. We need to have words of affirmation in our home, whether it's the primary love language or not. There's a ton of great resources out there on that. Last thing is this as we close this morning. Number 5, quality time. I've said this over and over, but I'll say it again. He who spends the most time wins. You may think, well, as long as it's quality, then quantity don't matter. No, quantity matters too. For your family. Quantity matters. I can tell you I spent most of my Saturday in a gymnasium where my kids' basketball team was getting destroyed 31-4. I looked at my wife and I said, this is painful. This is kind of like torture right now. I don't want to spend my Saturdays like this. But you know what I kept noticing? Every time my son ran down the court, he'd look up in the stands. If he did something right, he'd do one of these. Why? Because they want you to be with them. They want you to experience it. My kids, they'll always say this to me. Hey, Dad, watch. You know what you need to do at that moment? Set your phone down and watch. And watch. And then find something good to affirm them with. Because it was obviously important enough to them to get your attention to say, hey, watch. Hey, join me in this. Hey, I want you to celebrate with me. Quality time. Give that person your focused attention. Take them on a date night. People say, I can't afford family vacations. This is my personal opinion. It's not in scriptures. But I guess you could probably tweak it. I don't know. I'd have to ask Dr. Ken that. About vacations, you almost can't afford not to take vacations. We need our Sabbath individually, but I think that as a family, there's times that we need to Sabbath away from the chaos of life and take vacations where our kids have our undivided attention, where we're doing what they want. See, as parents, sometimes it's because we have the money and we make the decisions and we point the car in the direction that we want it to go, that oftentimes our kids' desires get overlooked, and there's times that we just have to say, hey, where do you want to eat today, buddy? Hey, where would you like to go on vacation? And get some of the input from the family, and then they know that they're heard and that they're valued. Share experiences on working on projects. My son told me the other day, he said, Dad, we need to go to Harbor Freight. And I said, okay, what do we need to get at Harbor Freight? And he said, well, I'll show you when we get there. That is dangerous. That's dangerous, right? We get there, and he's putting stuff in the cart, though. And so then I realized, oh, we're building something. We're going to build something because we got some tires and we got some, tools here. So we picked the stuff up, and in my barn, I've had this trailer in the way that my kids built. But you know what? You can do it with them, and you can enjoy it. And it's great quality time to do projects with your children, even with your spouse. I watch some of these YouTube channels, right? Like Living Off Grid, some of these cool things like that where you see neat cabins out in the middle of nowhere. And it's a husband-wife team doing it together. See, we can find projects, and sometimes it may not be our most exciting thing, but it may be for our spouse. And then that can be reciprocated back, and there'll be times that maybe they're willing to do stuff they don't necessarily like, but you do. Whether it's parenting or whether it's spousal, relationship, love, unity, there's not a lot of differences in the ingredients of what makes them successful. There's not a lot of difference. Going for a walk, attending events together, take interest in what they love. Here's a thought. Take some dance classes with your spouse. See how much my wife loves me. Let's see if she gets up here next week. If she's not up here, it don't mean she don't love me. Because I guarantee you she ain't coming on the stage and dancing. I remember when my grandparents started getting up there in age. My grandpa was gruff, man. He was the type of guy that you tried to avoid sometimes. But I can still remember in the end of his life, one of the things that he was passionate about was something that I would have never guessed. He was a millionaire. He was very astute, in some ways not, but he started dancing. He would live for it. He'd go twice a week just to dance. Just to dance. It's great exercise, keeps you moving. You might be shocked that you actually like it. My wife, one time I said, honey, what do you want to do? Let's do something that you want to do. Taken enough four-wheeling vacations and all that kind of stuff. She told me, she goes, I want to go to like a theater, like a theater thing. And I was like, oh, Jesus, help me. It's like when I eat my vegetables, I got to start speaking in tongues and praying, God, help me eat these suckers. And that's how I felt about the theater. I'm like, oh, my God. All I could think about was those people that put the little thing up over their face, And I thought, how lame. And I got to tell you, I think I was more into it than she was. Man, I was reciting lines from it. I was laughing. I actually got on the website, started looking for the next one. It's like, when can we go again? She's like, really? I actually enjoyed it. You might be shocked at how much you enjoy something, especially when you're with the love of your life. Even if you don't enjoy it, it should still be exciting and fun. That's the thing I find so funny about dating relationships. And it's like, hear no evil, see no evil. They can do no wrong. I see my friends that are still single. I see Chris Bollinger right here. I'll just call him out. He's sitting right here. I've known Chris almost my whole entire life. I've seen him do things with ladies he would never do with me. That could be that could be really wrong, right? That's not how I meant that one. But he would go hang out with them and go do something. I'd be like, dude, I just asked you to do that last week. Yeah, well, you're not pretty, We will do things at the beginning stages of relationships that draws them in and wins their heart. And then after we're married and we tied the knot, it's like, I ain't doing that. I hated that. That was the stupidest thing ever. I think about Nancy and Steve Wilson, and I so respect the relationship. Nancy can probably shoot straighter than most people in this room. And she's just found something that she enjoys with her husband. Now, most of you ladies would say, I ain't shooting no gun. You know, that's what my wife always says. She's always like, I don't want to shoot. One day, this is off subject. I was at home, and I got a new 9mm, and I thought, I want my wife to shoot this. We live out in the country. We walked back on the deck, and I kept telling her, you should shoot it. And she's like, no, I don't want to shoot it. I said, you should shoot it. I said, honey, I want to teach you how to shoot. This would be good. You'll enjoy it. And so she finally said yes, only because she was trying to love on me. Well, little did we know that my 2-year-old at the time in the house was playing with a cell phone that had no signal, but 911 still works. So he had called 911 about 10 minutes prior to me she finally said yes. And we're on the back deck. 911, the police are beating on my front door. Right in time to hear gunshots. You know, that's not an ingredient for a great date. You know, that's when they, kick the door in. What's going on? You know, I don't know what they would, I don't know. You just talk, he dialed. It was an honest mistake, officer. It was an honest mistake. 5 love languages, 5 different emotional ways to feel love.